Hello, welcome to this channel, the Hebrew Bible. This is Moses Gumadi, and in this video we will talk about the 10 commandments, or maybe not, the 10 utterances, or 10 words or sayings, which we will try to explain why we're not using the word commandment. Aseret had-Devarim in Hebrew. So this phrase, 10 commandments, is used in several locations, 3 locations in the Bible. I'm using the King James Bible text here. In Exodus 34:28, you can see the 10 commandments. In Hebrew, it is Aseret had-Devarim. Again, in Deuteronomy 4:13 also, we have the 10 commandments, Aseret had-Devarim in Hebrew. Again, in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 4, the 10 commandments were written on a second set of tablets when the first set of tablets were broken. And even there, the phrase 10 commandments in Hebrew would be Aseret had-Devarim. So just note this one here, the spake or speak means diber. Had-Devarim, diber. We'll talk about this word Devarim. So essentially what we're talking about is this phrase Aseret had-Devarim. Now what does this mean? We need to talk about this particular word had-Devarim. Had-Devarim, right? What does it mean? Here is a verse in Genesis chapter 15 and verse 1. And after these things the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, etc. Achar had-Devarim ha-Elle Hayya Devar Adonai El Avram. Here you can see Achar had-Devarim, after these things. So the things here in red are had-Devarim. Ha-Elle, these things, right? Hayya Devar Adonai. So that's a word of the Lord. So this Devar is the word, whereas Devarim, which is plural of Devar, is in red here. Here, this is in blue. This is translated as word. So it could be translated as a word or a thing. It's very interesting because, the words become things when the Lord speaks. Very interesting. Now, but the problem though is the word for commandment, which is popularly used, say 10 commandments, the word for commandment is not Devarim, but it is mitzvot. Here we have, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. The word here, mitzvotai. So mitzvot is the word for commandment. Therefore, it is not aseret mitzvot, as in 10 commandments, rather Aseret had-Devarim, which means 10 utterances or 10 matters or 10 words. You can say 10 things. Okay, that is what it is about the 10 commandments. Now, we look at the 10 commandments themselves. People are familiar, obviously. People divide them differently. This is the Jewish division, this is the Protestant division, this is the Catholic division approximately. And the main differences are these. In the last commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, neighbor's donkey, etc., etc. Not anything that is thy neighbor's. All that is together as a single commandment, the 10th commandment in Jewish and Protestant arrangements. Whereas in the Catholic arrangement, this commandment is split into 2. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. That is the first part. That's the 9th commandment. And then the 10th commandment is the remaining part. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor manservant or maidservant and donkey and all those things, right? Okay, so that's split. Now, so what do they do? Now that they have split it, what they're doing is that the remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy, it becomes the third commandment instead of the fourth commandment as in Jewish and Protestant systems. So we've moved it one above here in the Catholic system. Well, I'm not Catholic, by the way, and nor do I call myself a Protestant. You can say evangelical, but not quite. Let us not go there. But so the way they do is they club up all of these into the first. So that, and thou shalt have no other gods before me in the Jewish second commandment, and that is clubbed up in the first. Okay, that's what they do. And that explains why these commandments are different. However, one thing that I would like to say is that although officially, both in the Protestant and in the Catholic Ten Commandments, they start with, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, etc. Those things are not really captured within the Ten Commandments as at a popular level within the Protestant and Catholic traditions. Why? Because it doesn't look like a commandment for them. Whereas in the Jewish tradition, the first commandment, it doesn't even look like a commandment. It says, I am the Lord thy God, which has brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That's the first commandment. It's not a commandment. It's a first saying. And that makes sense that, it is a Devarim. These are the words or the things or utterances. It's not really mitzvot or commandment. And so the first one here, I am the Lord thy God who have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And that is a very important part of the 10 sayings or 10 commandments. Okay, so how do we decide to divide is the question really, right? So how did they divide? Forget about how did they divide. What does the text say? Now here we have Westminster Leningrad Codex, which is the basis of the Bibles that we have today. Basically, the 9th century and 10th century texts of Aleppo Codex and Leningrad Codex, these two are the basis, and Leningrad Codex is available in full, whereas Aleppo Codex, I think in the Pentateuch, I think a portion of it is gone. It's burnt. You can read about the history, Aleppo Codex, why it is burnt, etc. There's a big story about it. But yes, so the Westminster Leningrad Codex is what we use. This is the text that is shown in the Blue Letter Bible, which I often refer to. All the text that I show anytime in my videos is this Westminster Leningrad Codex. Now, why am I showing you this? This is the portion of Exodus 20, verse 2 onwards. This is verse 1 here. Vaidaber Elohim et kol ha-devarim ha-elle lemor. It's a bit difficult to read, in the printed text unless one is used to it. I was able, because I remember some of the words, I can read it, but sometimes I also struggle because of the print. But otherwise, it's the same text. This is verse 1, verse 2, so I have indicated these verses. And what I want to show you is that, look at this one. After the verse 1, there is a space here, right? And then there is a space, and then the second verse starts. But the third and the fourth verse and the fifth verse, there is no space, nothing. So they continue. So these spaces are not for verses. In certain sections, they give a space. And in other sections, they actually give a space of a full line here. You can see in between verse 7 and verse 8, there is a full line. And after verse 17, again, there is a full line here. So there are different kinds of ways in which they divide the text. And these spaces and these empty lines are indicated in the printed text in this manner. Now we have here the printed text in Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 17. Okay, all the 10 commandments are there. Now, I'll just go through this. Now, here is not the first commandment, it's just the introductory part. It says, Vaidaber Elohim et kol ha-devarim ha-elle lemor. Okay, this is not a part of it. Now, here you see this small sign here. This is the letter Samek. The letter Samek, and again that follows the first, and the next is the first commandment. Anochi Adonai Eloheka asher hotzeetika me eretz Mitzrayim beit avadim, etc. Okay, the whole thing ends here. The whole thing ends here in verse 6. At the end of the verse 6, we have this Samek. That's the Samek. It's a space, like as I've shown you in the previous slide, where there is a space in the manuscript. This space is called Setuma. That's why this is shown with a Samek. Now the actual manuscript doesn't contain Samek. It just has the space. But the printed texts, they have these Samek and Pe symbols. I'll come to the Pe. So the next verse, in verse 7, at the end of verse 7, we have the Pe symbol, which is Petucha. Setuma and Petucha. So this Samek refers to the space, and Petucha is a new line. That means there's a new line, and so you just leave an empty line and start in the next line. And that's what it means. So this is what I am using to divide the commandments, okay? Now, so far, how many have we got? So it starts with verse 2. Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeticha me eretz Mitzrayim beit avadim, etc. It goes on till here, mitzvotai. This word, it ends here. Okay. That's the first commandment, ends at verse 6. The second commandment ends here. This is the third commandment. It ends at verse 11, and that's the Samek. That's the fourth. That's the fifth. Here is the Samek here. They have not shown on the other side, so that's the fourth. No, fifth. That's the fifth. So let's get back, right? So 1, 2. No, that's the space. We still have 1. This is the second, right? That's the third. This is the fourth. That's the fifth. This is the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. You may be asking again, why am I cutting it here? Because they have not shown the symbol of the space, but it is present in the text. You can see that. Now, there is another portion where we have these 10 commandments, and that is in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 6 to 21. And so we have 6 to 21 here, right? So that's verse 21 here. And it can be divided in the same manner. This is the first, that's the second, third. Third is quite long because this is about the Sabbath. Et Yom HaShabbat lechadesho. Lechadesho, you can say, or lechadesho. So it again, it ends with the word HaShabbat. So this is an explanation about the Shabbat, that the Lord has created the world in, the 6 days, etc. So Sheshet Yamim, so the 6 days. So all that explanation is given here. So we have 1, 2, and 3 so far. This is the fourth, and the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and the 10th. Okay, so we have 10 both in Exodus as well as in Deuteronomy. But again, how do they look like in the tabular format? Compared to, we already looked at the Jewish, Catholic, and the Protestant. How does this text that we have divided based on the Samek and Pe symbols, or the space and the new line symbols on the Masoretic text, which is a Leningrad Codex, based on that, how does it look like is what we're going to look at. But before that, again, here, there was no Samek. Sometimes the text misses the Samek in some of the prints, because I can't help it, because some guys basically miss it, and there is a Samek there. And I can show you that Samek is here. Now, this is the Deuteronomy text, and this is Mitzvotai. That's the one, right? So that's where the Samek is. That's the space. And after that, we have Lo Tisa et Shem Adonai. So don't take the Lord's name in vain. So that's the next commandment. So we have here clearly this samek. So getting back to the Jewish and the Protestant and the Catholic thing, you can see clearly that the Westminster Leningrad Codex, the Bible that is the Hebrew Bible, that is the basis that of all the Bibles you can say. Dead Sea Scrolls contain what is known as a Proto-Masoretic text. 70% of biblical texts of Dead Sea Scrolls match with this one, by and large, and 30, about 5% according to LXX, etc. So let's not go there. Now this one, what I'm trying to say is that the Westminster Leningrad Codex pretty much divides the text similar to how the Catholics have divided, except though I must say that not every Catholic or not every Protestant will read the text, the first commandment or say first saying, as I am the Lord thy God. But that is very important, because the whole thing is important. The whole of the 6 verses or whatever, 1 to 6 or 2 to 6. So we'll look at that shortly. So this matches with this one. As you can see here, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, and that is split into 2. This Leningrad Codex also splits it into 2 in both the places, both in Exodus as well as in Deuteronomy. Okay. So here we have the text, the actual Hebrew text. I'll try to read it. Anochi Adonai Eloheka asher hotzethicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit hamadim lo yihyelecha Elohim acharim al panav. Anochi Adonai Eloheka, I am Jehovah your God. Asher hotzethicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt. Mibeit amadim, out of the house of bondage. Lo yihyelecha, don't keep for yourself, don't have for yourself. Elohim acherim means other gods. Alpanai means in front of me or beside me or before me. Lo tissa et Shem Adonai Elohecha lashave, do not take the name of the Lord in vain. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lakadsho, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, so glorify or honor your father and your mother. Lo tirtzach, thou shalt not kill, should not kill. Lo tin, or murder, you can say. We can talk about this one later on. Lo tinaf, lo tignov, lo ta'aneh bere'acha ed shaker, kaf. Lo tachmod beit re'echa. Lo tachmod, here you see the split. Thou shalt not covet. It splits, because there is a space there in the Westminster Leningrad Codex after this one. Lo tachmod es eshet re'echa. Eshet, Isha, is a woman or a wife of re'echa, your friend or your neighbor. Ve'avdo, ve'amtho, a servant or a maid. Ve'shoro, ve'chamoro, this is a donkey. Ve'chol asher lere'echa, all that belongs to your re'eh, that is your neighbor. Do not covet. Lo tachmod. Okay, that's the text that we have read. But really, I think we should read the first commandment. It's not a commandment, the first saying, which begins with, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And it goes on till verse 6, which we have not read. So let us read this one fully. Anochi Adonai Elohecha, Anochi Yehovah Elohecha, asher hotzethicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, mibeit havadim, lo yihyelecha Elohim acherim al panai. Lo ta'aseh lecha fesel, vechol temuna asher bashamayim mimma'al, va asher ba'aretz mitachat, va asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz, lo tishtachave lachem. Don't bow down to them. Velo ta'avdem. Don't serve them. Avad means to serve. Obed, Obed and Jesse. Obed, the name comes from here. Or Obadiah, or his name Obadiahu, or Obadiah. It comes from this one. He's a servant of Yah, or servant of Yahu, the servant of the Lord. Lo ta'avadem, ta'avdem, ki anochi Adonai Elohecha, anochi Yehovah Elohecha, El Kana. I am a passionate God who will not tolerate, unfaithfulness. That's what it means. Poked avon, avot. So avon, avot. Avon is the sins. Avot are the sins of the fathers. He brings poked avon avot al banim, upon the sons. Al shileshim. Shileshim is the third. Ve al revi'im, upon the third, upon the fourth. Leshon I. Ve ose chesed la alfim. So he will show mercy upon thousands. Leohavai ul shomre mitzvotai. Those who love his commandments. These are shomre, means to keep. Mitzvotai are commandments. La ohave, ohavai, ul shomre mitzvotai. Okay, that's the text we have read. That's the first saying, or first commandment, as normally people say. But we know 10 commandments is not really accurate. We've seen that already. Okay. That brings us to the end of this video. Please do like and comment and subscribe and forward it to your friends, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.